All right, let's talk about the most whack reading month I've probably ever had. Hey guys, what's up? It's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello, and if you've come back, thank you so much. Today, you guys, it is time for our May reading wrap up. The year is just flying. I did just say this in my June TBR video. I just feel like every time we get to the midway point in the year just goes. I just feel like now 2025 is going to fly. Anyway, you guys, as I said, today is finally time to do the May reading wrap up, and I am really excited to talk to you guys about the 11 books that I read in May, because guys, this was literally like the weirdest reading month that I've probably ever had, like for good reasons, but anyway, I will get into it. So this is going to be a nice little sit down video. So of course you guys know the drill. Let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's get right on into the wrap up. Alrighty, so for those who have not been on my channel before, I do like to start our reading wrap ups with a few monthly statistics. So I'll quickly run through just some overall figures. So in terms of my general statistics, as I said, I read 11 books this month. I read 4,177 pages. Now my average rating was 4.36, which is ridiculously high. And on the next page, I'm probably going to show you guys why. And then my most frequent format was actually paperback. However, I think I actually had an even split of like paperback to Kindle / audiobooks this month, which was very interesting. Now, in terms of my genres, this is where we started to get a little bit funny this month. I read a total of 5 romance books. I read 3 thriller books, which insane for me because I normally only read thrillers in Halloween time. I read 1 historical romance, 1 dark romance, and 1 horror, which I have never read before. I really just like went through it this month, and we'll talk about it in a second. And then finally, in terms of my ratings, this is why my star rating was so high. I read 6 5-star books this month, and guys, I don't know what's going on. Okay, I will tell you guys as we get into it that 3 of these books were rereads. So of course, if you take out the 3 reread 5 stars, that's still 3 5-star reads in 1 month, which is insane. I think the most I've ever had in 1 month is maybe like 2. This month I had 3. I had 1 4.75, 1 2.5, 1 3.5, 1 3, and 1 2.5. So a bit of a mix of everything. I was just so surprised this month, I guess, about how high a lot of these ratings were. Where's my phone? It was just kind of crazy. I'm very excited. It was strange. As you guys saw, I really entered my thriller era this month. I read 3 / maybe 4 thrillers, but I'm gonna count the 4th one as a horror because it really was. Guys, I just like low-key made eye contact with somebody across the street from me in their house, and like there's nobody living in their house. Anyways, you guys, let's talk about our very first book. Okay, so for our first book of the month that I read, if you guys have been following along with my channel and my reading vlogs this month, you guys will know that I did a rereading my favorite books full spoiler reading vlog, and that was a request from you guys. I had so many people basically asking me to do a reading vlog of me rereading my favorite books and doing full spoiler, which I wasn't sure that you guys sort of wanted to see something like that, but I guess that it was. So that was the first lot of books, I guess, that I'm going to show you guys. So I really did start the month off with an absolute banger. The first book that I read this month was Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. Now, I know that I make a million jokes and I talk about Bridgerton and Colin and Penelope and whatever, like many times throughout my videos. I always make like jokes to them, but truly this is one of my favorite books, and I knew that because I was in like a weird slumpy place when I started this video, I wanted to kick it off with a bang. Now, I have reread this book now 4 times, maybe 5 times. It really is like a comfort read for me. I have said that a few times. For those who do not know what this book is, this is essentially part of the Bridgerton series. So it is book number 4. Now, the Bridgerton series follows a family of 8 siblings, and essentially they are all like sort of interconnected standalones where each of the individual siblings gets their own love story. So there are 8 books, I think 9 now with Queen Charlotte, and this is book number 4. So this follows Colin and Penelope. So this is a childhood friends to lovers, best friend's brother. So essentially Penelope has been in love with Colin pretty much her whole life. I think since she turned about 16. She's always been in love with him, but she just feels like he will never see her. Colin is the 3rd eldest Bridgerton brother who essentially is trying to find purpose in life. He loves his travels. Basically, when this book does start, we do have him coming back into town, reconnecting with his friend Pen, and is the moment for their love story to take flight. I really can't spoil this one too much because especially if you guys haven't seen the show and you haven't read the books, there is a mystery identity plot line within these books. You do find out the identity of this person at the end of the first season of the TV show. However, when you read the books, you do not find out the identity of this person actually until this book. So I won't say what that is in case you do want to read it, but it is just one of my most favorite romances. I love them so much. It is a 5-star read. I think I've upped the spice rating to, I think, a 2 chili for this, because when I first read it, I gave it like a 1, but there is still like some stuff going on. And if you know, there's a reason there's a mirror on the front cover of this and the carriage scene, like, you know, the whole thing. So I will love these guys forever and a day. So that was a great way to start my rereads vlog. Okay, so after that, we went for a bit of a change of pace, but of course still a 5-star read. So the second reread of that video was Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I love this book literally so much, and I think like in doing the reread, I just remember why I love this book so much. Like, I always remember, but I think reading this book, I can't explain the feeling that I get from reading this book. This is probably the book that I have reread the most ever. I've probably reread this book 6 times, I'd like to say. It is just so good. So again, for those who haven't heard of this does follow the rivals to lovers romance between the first son of the United States and the Prince of Wales. Basically what happens is these two have sort of been like enemies, rivals for a few years, and this rivalry sort of comes to a head at the royal wedding, where the two of them get into a physical altercation and they destroy a $75,000 wedding cake. Basically the palace and the White House are basically saying, you guys, this looks terrible for us. It's all over the press. You need to sort out your act and clear up your reputation. So we're sort of going to force you two to have this fake Instagrammable friendship to basically say that it was all a misunderstanding and you've been buddies for years and it's fine. And obviously the more time that Alex and Henry spend time together, their relationship does start to change for the better. I always say that, like I just said before, I can't express and pinpoint the right language to describe what I feel when I read this book. There is like a little endorsement on the back from Entertainment Weekly that says, a fireworks in the sky, glitter in your hair, joyous royal romance that you'll want to fall head over heels in love with again and again. That's what this book feels like. It feels like fireworks in the sky and glitter in your hair. It is such a special book. I cry so much. Music plays such a beautiful role in this story as well. I feel like out of any book, like if you were to see me on the street and you were to ask me like 3 recommendations, I know for a fact, without a doubt, I will always have this book within those 3, whatever I end up saying, because I have recommended this book so many times, and to you guys as well, and I've had so many messages from you guys saying that you loved it because it is just silly and it's political, but it's like doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's loud and colorful, and I love it. So 5 stars, and the boys have maybe 2.5 chili spices, because boys like to get down. They like to get down. And the final reread that I did for that video was, of course, Twisted Games. Now, this one was the one that I was the most scared to do a reread of, because I read it probably 2 years ago prior to obviously reading it at the beginning of this month. So I was kind of worried rereading this if this was still going to be 5 stars, because I also, again, it's one of those books that I got a certain feeling reading it for the first time, and I was like, oh God, what if it doesn't give that to me again? For those who haven't seen this one, this is the second book in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. This is a forbidden romance between a modern day princess and her bodyguard. So essentially, Bridget is a modern day princess, and her brother, who was in line to be the king, decides to abdicate for love. So she essentially has a matter of months to change her entire life and learn how to become queen. She does have a bodyguard called Reese, who is a very quiet, stoic, ex-military man who decides that he's going to help her fulfill this bucket list that she has of things that she wants to do before she becomes the queen. Guys, this book, like, I feel out of all of them, surprised me the most, because I knew the first 2 were going to stay 5 stars. They always give me 5-star feelings, but this, I feel like I had an even like more earth-shattering experience reading it for the second time, because it is just such a beautiful and well done forbidden romance. You can feel the stakes, you can feel the tension, the spice is there. Like I literally can't express how beautiful this is. If you saw that video, you would have seen how much this one in particular brought me to tears. I just forgot how special it was. And yeah, it's still a 5-star read. This is also a 2.5 chili spice. It's of any of Anna Huang's books, I feel like I encourage you so much to pick this one up, because it is just so special. So yeah, loved those 3 so much. So after the rereads video, which I obviously did not only for you guys, but also because I wanted to try and get out of my reading slump, I truly messed up because obviously I reread my favorite books and I was like, I don't want to leave. I was like, I don't want to move on. Like I don't want to. So I always say that if you're in a reading slump, you've got to do one of two things. So the first thing is either reread a favorite or change genre. And for me, I always go to a thriller. If I feel like I need a change of pace and a reset and rereading a fave doesn't work, it just puts me further into a slump, I go for a thriller. So the thriller that I went for was on Kindle Unlimited, but I've since bought the physical, is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. Like, I'm not even being dramatic. This book changed my life. Like, I'm being so for real. Basically, this book follows this young girl who is found on the side of the road one night. She can't remember anything and she can't remember her name. So the police officer that finds her ends up taking her back to the sheriff's department and tries to sort of question her and see if she can remember anything. And whilst this is happening, a man frantically sort of comes into the station and is wanting to file a missing persons report because he can't find his daughter. And basically he sees the girl who obviously was found on the road and he's like, that's her, like that's my daughter. I can't believe you found her. He's got all of her medical records and birth certificates. So, you know, the police officer basically checks this guy out and says like, yeah, okay, like obviously he's your dad. But you know, our main protagonist, she can't remember who she is or what her name is. So she's sort of just taking this guy's word for it. She's going, you know, he's got all of my birth certificates and my records, so he must be my dad. And once all the, you know, background checks are cleared, she is basically cleared to go home with this man who is her dad. And that is honestly all I can tell you guys without giving too much away, because this book is absolutely insane. I literally read it in 3.5 hours. It was so addictive. Yeah, I can't even put it into words how much I loved it. I have literally forced about 3 or 4 different people to read it afterwards because like the plot twist, I was so gagged. I could not see it for a mile away. Literally, like, beg you guys, if you haven't read thrillers before, this is going to be the best one to get you into enjoying the genre. But also if you are in a reading slump and you need a change of pace, you need a palate cleanser, this is going to be incredible for you. This was my first 5-star read of the month that was not part of the rereads. I literally couldn't stop thinking about it for days and days and days after reading it. So yeah, it was just insane. So this was the culprit of getting me into the thriller genre this month. So that is that one there. And as I said to you guys, because that one kicked off my love of the thriller genre this month, we then went into a deep dive, a canyon, if you will. And with my like thrillers, I really don't like a psychological thriller where it feels like a chaser. I like missing person, I like creepy child and stuff like that. I don't like things that feel too real. I don't know if that makes sense. So I remember seeing this next book floating around on my For You page around Halloween time last year, and I remember everybody saying that it was like the scariest thriller that they had ever read in their lives, and I was just in the mood for a creepy child like story. So I ended up reading this book called Incidents Around the House, and this is by Josh Mallerman. This is the story of this little girl, Bella. Now I'm going to tell you guys, this is creepy. This was my horror of the month. I went into it thinking that it was a thriller, but I definitely think that it is more of a horror. This book follows Bella. She's 8 years old, and essentially she has this entity living in her closet who she calls Other Mummy. And the postman just went by on the squeakiest motorbike. As I said, she has this entity in her closet who is called Other Mummy. Basically, at night, Other Mummy comes out and sits on Bella's bed and continually asks her if she can go into her heart, which is so incredibly creepy. And I guess if you understand the mechanics of that, the entity is essentially asking if she can possess Bella. That is essentially what the story is about, and that struggle and the push and pull. I will say about this book, I think like the way Bella was written, and I listened to the audiobook, so I highly recommend, if this sounds like it's something up your alley, highly recommend listening to the audiobook, because the voice actress who does narrate Bella does an incredible job of doing that like creepy but like very innocent childlike voice. It is just through one point of view, so it is just done really well. I also recommend the audiobook because the physical and the Kindle book, when I loaded it up on my Kindle, does not have quotation marks, and that really frustrates me a little bit. I feel like it's hard to break it up like that, so I definitely recommend the audio. Yeah, here's my thing with this book. I'll give you guys my overview of the book. I was loving this book up until about the 50% mark because it was just creepy. It was giving me everything that I needed. It wasn't too scary because guys, sometimes I do get a little bit too spooked by some of these things, but it wasn't too scary. It was giving me everything that I wanted in the right, I guess, amounts. And then we got to the 50% mark and I just feel like it just got a bit like lazy and anticlimactic. And then the way the book actually resolved, I was like, what? Like really? Like you built up this really great concept for like the worst payoff. I just felt like it was super flat and it could have gone in another way, in another direction. However, I'll tell you guys that I gave the book 3.5 stars, but like upon thinking about this, because I read this quite early in the month, I do think about the book all the time. It gave me like creepy, like I felt gross. I felt gross reading it, but it just wasn't the best. So I'm happy with a 3.5. I would recommend it if you like a creepy, like bit of a story like that, but otherwise I still think 3.5 is a good rating. Like I would recommend maybe around Halloween time if you like something spooky. So yeah, that was that one there. And then guys, then I read this book that just like wasn't even on my radar. I don't know sort of how I found this, but I ended up going to a local bookstore of mine that's just recently opened. It's a romance only bookstore. I should have probably prefaced this by saying that the night before I was scrolling on Kindle Unlimited and I found this book, and then funnily enough, the next day in the bookstore, they had this book, the physical copy, and I was like, oh, I have to buy it. But it is called Kiss a Villain, and this is by Mia Darling. Now, guys, I'm already gonna tell you guys that this was just the most slay book ever, and I read it so fast. I literally read it in a day. It was addictive. It's very short. It's literally like 280 pages. Oh, I just looked at the last page. Guys, it was sick and twisted. Okay, so basically this is, and get this, write it down because it was so slay. This is a childhood friends to lovers, Mafia dark romance. Okay, so essentially I'm gonna get their names wrong and I'm so sorry. I think it's Yarrick and something, I totally forgot. Kirill. Yarrick saves Kirill basically one day. Yeah, he basically saves his life when they're very young boys, and because Kirill sort of has no family left, Yarrick's dad ends up taking him in, but he says, I'm gonna train you up to basically be one of my soldiers, and when you're older you're gonna do my dirty work for me. So the two of them have grown up together. You sort of see that progression, which is so special. I do believe this is going to be a duet, so we're going to see the young versions of them and the current versions of them. So this was like, honestly, this back and forth unrequited love sort of thing, or like will they, won't they, high stakes, mafia, guys. Some of the quotes in this book, I just like was obsessed with it because like, oh my God, I'm just obsessed with like grumpy sunshine, will he love me back? I have no words for how much I love this. And you guys, the last chapter is literally 3 words and I was so gagged. I need the next one now, Mia Darling, okay? If you love if you love Mafia and you want to try something a little different, like guys, you guys know I love childhood friends to lovers. It just hits for me every single time. It was 5 stars. I was so gagged. I put a video up on my Instagram stories like freaking out because it was so good. I can't even just like, yeah, I can't even tell you more about it because I just need you to go and read it. It's super short. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I highly, highly, highly recommend. And again, 5 stars. This was another one of my 5-star reads this month. I gave it 1 chili spice because there was like 1 scene towards the end, but it wasn't really anything, but it was so good. It was so good. Alrighty, next up, I read, where is it? Here. I read another thriller because after finishing that, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm still in my thriller vibe. Like thrillers were honestly the flavor of the month, as I said. So I decided to pick up Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Now this one has a really interesting concept. So guys, my voice is so husky. I'm definitely getting sick. This basically follows this married couple who are definitely having marital problems, who essentially win this like little weekend vacation away at this chapel Airbnb in the Scottish Highlands. It's really interesting because we do get like a dual point of view. Actually, we get 3 point of views. I won't tell you what the third one is, but we do get the point of view of the wife and of the husband. And basically like, it's very much that like unreliable narrator thing where like we don't know who's telling the truth. You know, the wife will sort of be saying that the husband is working too much and he's not who he used to be and blah 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 blah. Super interesting. I will say that this book honestly was just like a bit too slow for me. I think it took me a week to finish this, which is odd considering it was so short. I did like the plot twist. I think it was very interesting the way the story wrapped up, but I did have to demote a lot of points because I just had no interest to finish it. I did finish it. I was almost going to DNF, but I decided to just push through, and I'm glad that I did because, as I said, the plot twist was good, but it just was very lackluster to me, very uneventful up until maybe like the 80% mark, I'd like to say. So I ended up giving this a 2.5 star. I am going to unhaul this book. I didn't love it. This is my first book by Alice Feeney. I would like to read more, obviously, but yeah, we'll have to see if I do decide to reach for more in the future. All right, next up, I read another book on my Kindle, and this was actually an ARC. So I read Tourist Trap by Morgan Elizabeth. Now, I really love Morgan's books. Passenger Princess is one of my favorite books by her, and it's one of my favorite books ever. So I was so excited when I did receive an email from her team asking if I'd like to receive an early copy of this, because it was on my May TBR. So essentially, this one here is definitely a summer romance. So this one basically follows a lifeguard and her ex-boyfriend's brother. She essentially moves to this small town for the summer to take a lifeguarding job, and she's got nowhere to stay. So of course she ends up bunking with her ex-boyfriend's brother. Now, again, this is another one that I really liked up until the halfway point, but guys, it just sort of resolved too quickly for me, and I was like, where's the tension and the yearning? And I understand it's supposed to be a silly summer romance. I think the other issue that I sort of had with this is that obviously it's coming into winter in Australia, and I just couldn't really vibe with the whole summer element of it. So it took me 2 weeks to read this book, which is not great. So I did end up deciding to give this book a 3 star. It was still solid. I'm sure if you're in the Northern Hemisphere right now and you are going into those warmer months, you will definitely enjoy this. I also just think that the ex's brother trope is not for me. I have read it a few times now, and I just don't feel like it's very realistic. I just do not see how you could be like, how you could date your ex's brother. Like especially when you were together for such a long time, it just doesn't really make sense to me. I don't find it very believable. So 3 stars and 3 chili spices, because yeah, if you guys saw, I did this in a reading vlog, and like the spice, yeah, it took me out. It took me out. Guys, I have to charge my camera, so I'll be back to film the last 3 books after this. All right, besties, I'm back. I have lost my voice, which is not great. Basically, I think I've been battling something over the last like week or so, and you guys don't know, I also sing outside of this being my job, and for the last couple of days or so, I've just been working on some stuff for a callback. So obviously my excessive singing when I should probably be on vocal rest has not been great to me. So let's finish off the last 3 books that I read. So after finishing Tourist Trap, I wanted to do another thriller, and this was one I did like a massive thriller haul, and this was one that I was just like so excited to read because it intrigued me so much, and it's called Hidden Pictures. This is by Jason Rekulak. It's sort of like a creepy kid. So essentially it's about this girl called Mallory who ends up getting a babysitting job looking after this little boy. Teddy, basically, that's his name. He has been drawing all of these like pictures, and then one day he shows Mallory this picture of his imaginary friend, which is very creepy, and she obviously thinks that's a little bit odd. Now, the nannying position that she has is a live-in position, so essentially she lives in this little cottage like out the back of the house. She learns from the next door neighbor that before this family moved into the house, there's like an old wives' tale that there was a lady who died in that house. I guess they like never found out what happened to her or something, or they never found the body or something like that. From that, Mallory believes that the imaginary friend that Teddy is drawing is this lady that passed away in the house. And that's literally all I'm going to say, because you guys, this book was so incredible. At first I thought it was going to lean more horror like that other one, but this is definitely a mystery thriller. You're trying to find out what happened to somebody, and it's really cool. The use of the pictures, you guys, is so unlike anything that I've ever read before. Obviously I have read graphic novels before. The pictures in the book, you guys, they start to get more detailed, and you start to piece together more of the story, and it was just incredible. The plot twist, I had like full body goosebumps. If you guys saw my reading vlog when I read this, I think it was a like read with me for a week or something like that. I was telling you guys about how I had like full body goosebumps like jumping out of my chair when I read this, and then I was crying so much at the end because it had such a bittersweet ending, and it was 5 stars because I cannot stop thinking about this book. And I recommend this for people who obviously can tolerate and can handle like spooky pictures. So obviously if you're not a fan of scary movies, you probably won't like this. I wouldn't say necessarily that the photos are scary, but they definitely make your skin crawl a little bit. So if you're not a fan of those types of things, this is probably not for you. But if you can handle that, like, oh my god, you guys, this book is so incredible. So yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. This was my final 5-star read of the month. Yeah, I literally, not a day goes past that I don't stop thinking about this book, truly. Okay, after that I decided, I think I was done with the thrillers for the month. I felt like nothing could really top this one, so I decided that I was going going to pick up a romance and continue a series, and I think I decided to read this one because I heard such hype about the next one that had only just come out. So I finally decided to read King of Sloth by Anna Huang. What was great about these two is that they've also just been put back on Kindle Unlimited, which is really great. I was like, oh, it's so great. I can read on my Kindle and I can read and annotate the book. This is the fourth book in the Kings of Sin series. So this follows Javier and Salome. So essentially this is a reverse Grumpy Sunshine boss employee. She is his publicist and he is this heir to this billionaire sort of company. He doesn't want to do it though. He's incredibly lazy. He's got that party boy, you know, playboy lifestyle, and he just never wants to sort of be serious. And essentially what ends up happening is Javier's father ends up passing away, and in his will he says the only way that he is going to see a cent of his inheritance is if he takes over as CEO of the company, and Javier just does not want to do that. I felt like the Kings of Sin series was missing something. Like, I did not like the first one. I liked the second two. They were about a 4.25, maybe like 4.5 star. I was just waiting for something to really like remind me of why I love Anna Huang's writing, and this one gave it to me in spades. I really enjoyed this. I did tandem read this on the Kindle and on the audio, and I loved the audio. I think the dual narration was chef's kiss. Yeah, just some of the quotes. I love when Anna Huang like puts in a bit of a like destination in her books. They went to, I think, Spain in this one. It was just really good and I was swooning and I had a great time. So I think I gave this 4.25 stars. Yeah, 4.25 stars and a 2.5 chili spice. Highly recommend. If you guys saw my June TBR, you will have seen that I've decided to read King of Envy next because I just need to know what's going to go on in that book so badly. And finally, the 11th and final book that I read this month, and the one that like has not put me in a slump, but like I just don't want to leave. I don't want to move on because I refuse to believe that this series is over and that I'm literally not going to see any new material about these people again. Oh my god. It was Rewind It Back. I just picked up the physical copy because I read it on my Kindle and it is stunning. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like gold detailing and like foiling. It is absolutely stunning. So this is the 5th and final book in the Windy City series, and like my heart hurts just thinking about it because I love this series. Dare I say it, this might be my favorite contemporary romance series ever. That surpasses Chestnut Springs. It surpasses any other romance series that I've talked to you guys about, because there is something unmatched about the feeling you get when you read these books. And when I say that the 10 lead characters that we have grown to love over the course of the series, like they just feel so real in a way that is so different to anything else I had read before. So book number 5 follows Rio, who is a character that we have known and loved since Mile High. He is on the same hockey team as Xander's, who is the male main character of the first book in the series. So we have seen him grow and change and fallen in love with him as a character, I guess, for 4 books now, and it was finally his time to get his own love story. Rio, you know, as we'd sort of seen him throughout the series, was absolutely best friends and so close with all of the female main characters in this series, which I think was really special. But it was also shown that he really just like was unlucky in love, didn't really have luck with the girls, was a big flirt, but like always just got shot down and whatever. And I guess this is where his story is going to take off. So this follows the childhood friends to lovers second chance renovation trope romance, okay, between Rio and Hallie. So what ends up happening here is when Rio comes back from holiday and he sort of like comes back to his house, he has a chat with his neighbor and sees that the neighbor has actually renovated the interior of her house in order to sort of like get ready to sell. And he, you know, seeing how she's done such a great job, he sort of asks like, oh, who did this for you? I'd love to do the same to my house. So she ends up sending him the details, and he ends up hiring the same interior designer who designed his neighbor's house. Now, lo and behold, this interior designer happens to be his childhood sweetheart and ex-girlfriend, Hallie. She essentially gets this job working on Rio's house in order to, I guess, fix it up to sell it. This is past present, so you get so many flashbacks to when they were kids. And as I always say to you guys, like childhood friends to lovers is my kryptonite. Like I love it so much. I was very hesitant that this was going to be a second chance because second chance is not my favorite trope. I truly feel like when you're done, you're done. So I was very intrigued to see how I was going to feel about this, and I guess like what the reason was going to be that they split up the first time. Yeah, I went into this and this is my thoughts on Rewind It Back. I listened to the audio and I was so happy that this was finally finally dual narration audio as well, because it was just done so well. When I say dual narration, guys, I mean that like in the male main character's point of view, the female main character will also speak her lines, rather than like the male narrator putting on a girl voice, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed that. I thought there was so many beautiful moments in this between the couple, and I'm thinking of a few in particular that just like touched me so much. They made me swoon, they made me giggle, they just like gave me butterflies. It was so many sweet things. I really do love them as a couple. I do have to say, however, there are a few tiny things I sort of had issues with, I'd like to say. Not issues with, but I guess like where they didn't hit the same way. If you guys are familiar with the series, the 3 middle books, The Right Move, Caught Up, and Play Along, myself and one of my besties, Beck, we were talking about how they all had like these 5-star moments in them. I feel like this book, as well as Mile High, they didn't have a moment like that for me where I was like, oh, this book is like out of the stratosphere. It was incredible and I loved the book so much and I loved the couple, but it didn't give me one moment that like literally will become a Roman Empire that I will think about for the rest of my days in terms of the love story. However, I have to say to you guys, the epilogue of this book, I literally was crying. I literally can't even think about it. I literally was crying about it for like 2 hours after I finished it, because I think out of like any interconnected standalone series that has ended before, and I talked about this at the beginning, guys, the found family in this and the 10 best friends and 10 like people that we grew to love over the course of the 5 books, like it's unmatched. They feel like my family, and I feel like the way that it wrapped up was just like so special. It was such a beautiful tribute to each of the characters. Like I feel like without spoiling too much, the epilogue really did like almost have a beautiful send-off for all of the characters, and I was just so happy with it. If I was rating the book based on how the epilogue left me feeling, I probably would have given it 5 stars. However, as I said, there were some moments where I just didn't feel like it was a 5-star book, so I ended up giving Rewind It Back a 4.5 star. I'm thinking maybe 4.5 or 4.75 depending on how I feel, but it was such a gorgeous conclusion. I just love them so much. Like look how cute the little art is on the inside of that. Anyways, so that was the last book that I read in May, and it's put me in a big slump and I don't want to read anything else. Alrighty guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking through all the way to the end if you did, especially with my croaky voice. I really appreciate it. How did you guys go in May? What was your favorite book that you read? I think that my favorite book that I read, I actually think for 2 different reasons. This was my favorite read because it was a 5-star and I just cannot stop thinking about it. But in terms of like the one that made me feel the most this month, I think it was Rewind It Back. I have so many feelings about this and I just don't want to move on from it. So yeah, those are probably my 2, even though I didn't give Rewind It Back a 5-star. Like that's, you know, sometimes you just have really big feelings connected to books. So yeah, as always, you guys, if you aren't already, you are more than welcome to follow me on my socials. I'll leave my handles on the screen and in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you are hitting that notification bell. That way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a lovely day or a lovely night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.